The year is 5073. Humanity is on the brink of war. Across the galaxy, countless alien civilizations vie for control of the stars. But there is one planet, seemingly forgotten by time and unknown to most, that could change everything. Captain Leo Thorne stood on the edge of the unknown, staring into the dark abyss of the planet below. His heart beat steadily in his chest, but there was an undeniable tension in the air. His team of highly trained soldiers, the best humanity had to offer, had been deployed to explore a planet far beyond the known galaxy, one that had been marked on old star maps, though no one knew why. Their mission was clear: retrieve alien technology buried beneath the planet's surface that could give Earth a much-needed advantage in the looming galactic conflict. But as the landing craft descended toward the barren world, something felt off. There were no signs of life, no radio signals, just the vast, empty expanse of rocky terrain below them. Leo couldn't shake the feeling that something had been left behind on this desolate world, a secret the galaxy had long forgotten. Touchdown in 30 seconds came the calm voice of Lieutenant Murray Jace, the team's communications officer. Leo gave a curt nod, his eyes scanning the barren landscape. The team was tense, their faces covered by visors, their weapons ready. The dropship touched down with a slight thud, and the ramp lowered. Cold air rushed in as the team disembarked, their boots kicking up dust. The silence of the planet enveloped them. "Let's move," Leo commanded, his voice firm. The team spread out, forming a protective circle as they moved toward the coordinates they had been given. They arrived at an ancient structure half buried in the earth. It looked like a vault, its design unlike anything Leo had ever seen. Alien symbols covered the surface, glowing faintly, as if the building itself was alive, waiting for them. At the center, a large stone door was sealed shut. It looked ancient, perhaps millennia old. Leo approached it cautiously, a sense of unease creeping over him. "Do you think it's a trap?" Mara asked, her voice barely a whisper. She had an instinct for danger, and her gut told her this was no ordinary mission. Leo shook his head. "We've come too far. We need to open it." With a deep breath, Leo stepped forward and activated the device they'd brought to unlock the vault. The door creaked and groaned, the ancient mechanisms resisting at first, but with a loud snap, it gave way, revealing what lay inside. A bright blue light flooded out from the vault, blinding everyone for a moment. As their eyes adjusted, they saw the source of the light, a small spherical object, suspended in midair within a chamber filled with intricate alien technology. The sphere hummed with energy, its surface rippling as if it were alive. It was beautiful in a way that was hard to describe, like looking at a star being born. The team stood frozen for a moment, mesmerized by the sight. Leo could feel the power radiating from it, like a low hum deep within his chest. He didn't understand it, but instinct told him this was something important, something that could change the course of history. "Captain, we don't know what this is," said Sergeant Rook, his voice tinged with caution. "It could be dangerous." "I know," Leo replied, his voice steady but filled with an unspoken understanding. "But we don't have the luxury of hesitation. The galaxy is at war. We need this technology." Leo stepped forward, his hand brushing the surface of the sphere. As soon as he touched it, a pulse of energy shot out from the object, sending a shockwave through the vault. The lights flickered, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. "What the hell?" Mara shouted, stumbling as the floor buckled beneath them. Then, without warning, the entire sky above them seemed to flicker. The air itself seemed to grow heavier, as if the planet was reacting to the disturbance. Leo's heart pounded as he backed away from the sphere, his team moving quickly to gather themselves. "Get back to the ship now," Leo ordered, his voice sharp. The team hurried to retreat, but before they could reach the ramp, the ground beneath them seemed to rumble with an unsettling intensity. In that moment, an alert flashed across Leo's HUD. He froze as he read the incoming message. Emergency transmission from the Galactic Council. All forces mobilize. Target: Earth. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The pulse from the vault had not only activated a dormant weapon, but had also sent a signal out into the galaxy, one that had been intercepted by the Galactic Council. Their warning systems had detected the energy spike, and they had immediately mobilized their fleet. The message was clear: Earth was now a threat, and the Council would not allow it to challenge their supremacy. "Captain, we need to move. Now," Mara yelled, breaking Leo's stunned silence. The team sprinted back to the ship as the ground trembled again, this time with more force. Leo's mind raced. He had no idea what he had just unleashed, but he knew one thing for certain: the Galactic Council would not let this go unpunished. As the dropship soared back into the sky, Leo looked out the window, watching the planet below shrink into the distance. The pulse from the vault had caused something much larger than just a reaction from the alien technology. It had sent a signal that would change the fate of humanity forever. Leo's thoughts raced. The Galactic Council was a powerful and mysterious group of aliens who had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years. They maintained their rule through technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. But Leo knew one thing: the Council feared humanity. They feared what they couldn't control. And now, Earth had something they couldn't ignore. The dropship's engines roared as they ascended through the atmosphere. Leo looked out the viewport, his mind reeling. The mission was supposed to be about discovery, about finding ways to defend humanity from the growing alien threats. But they had uncovered something far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The hum of the ship's engines faded as Leo stood by the window, watching the stars stretch out before them. The Council was already on their way. Earth had just become the most important target in the galaxy, and Leo had no idea what the coming conflict would bring. But he knew one thing: the fate of the galaxy would be decided by what they had just found. And the hidden vault was only the beginning. In the distance, the faint hum of an incoming warship echoed through the void. It was coming for them. As the dropship carrying Captain Leo Thorne and his team ascended toward Earth's atmosphere, the enormity of what they had uncovered began to settle in. What was supposed to be a simple mission to retrieve ancient alien technology had escalated into something far more dangerous. Leo's mind raced as he tried to process the information flashing across his HUD. Earth was no longer just another planet in the galaxy. It had just become a target. The Galactic Council, the powerful coalition of advanced alien races that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, had taken notice. They had controlled all technology, all warships, and all power for millennia. They were a force so immense that no one dared challenge them. Their reign had been absolute, but they had always feared one thing: the misuse of forbidden technology that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. And now, that very technology had been unlocked by Leo's team. What had been buried for eons in a forgotten vault had sent a ripple through the galaxy, reaching the Galactic Council's most guarded communication networks. They couldn't afford to let such power fall into the hands of humanity. The Council was vast, its fleets numerous and highly advanced. No one had ever dared to oppose them. Until now. High Regent Xarlock, the ruthless and calculating leader of the Galactic Council, sat in his private chamber aboard the flagship Sovereign's Wrath, staring at the glowing holographic display of Earth. His eyes narrowed as the news of the activated technology reached him. The power shift, the signal, and the potential threat humanity now posed were all too clear. "Send the fleet," Xarlock ordered coldly. His voice was like ice, and his words carried the weight of thousands of years of unchallenged rule. "We must extinguish this threat before it grows. Make no mistake, Earth's destruction will be swift." On Earth, Leo's team was still recovering from the shock of their discovery. They had just returned to the safety of the orbiting flagship Eagle's Cry when the first warning signals blared across their comms. The message was clear: Council warships were on their way. But they didn't have the luxury of time to prepare. The battle raged on above and below Earth, with the Galactic Council showing no mercy. The humans were outmatched, but they weren't going to back down. They had something to fight for now, something personal. Leo's resolve had hardened. With every passing second, every blast, every sacrifice, they grew stronger. They may have been the underdogs, but they were not without hope. And as the warships above Earth continued to unleash destruction, Leo and his team fought back with everything they had. The fight was far from over. The tension on the Eagle's Cry was palpable as Captain Leo Thorne stood at the command deck, his eyes scanning the readouts of the battle raging above Earth. The Galactic Council's relentless attack was taking its toll. Ships were damaged, ground forces were faltering, and the sheer scale of the invasion was overwhelming. Yet, amidst the chaos, one thing stood out above all: the discovery of the forbidden technology they had unleashed. It had been humanity's potential salvation, but it was also the source of their greatest peril. However, the day took an unexpected turn when Dr. Carla Voss, the team's lead scientist and a trusted member of Leo's crew, was caught in a secret communication. The truth was a gut punch. Carla had been sending information to the Galactic Council. She had betrayed them. She had been in contact with the enemy, offering them everything she knew about the ancient technology in exchange for power and influence once the Council took control of it. Leo's heart sank as he listened to the intercepted transmission. The voice of Dr. Voss, usually calm and composed, now sounded cold and calculating. "You don't understand. Once the Council has the technology, I'll be in a position to command fleets, to control systems. I'll finally have the power I've always deserved. I'm not like the others. I won't be a pawn." Leo could barely believe his ears. Carla, the woman who had helped him unlock the mysteries of the ancient tech, had sold them out. It wasn't just the betrayal of a colleague. It was the betrayal of a friend. Leo had trusted her, relied on her scientific expertise to give humanity an edge in the war. And now, she had made a deal with the very force that was trying to annihilate them. "What the hell is she thinking?" Leo muttered under his breath, his hands tightening into fists. He turned to his officers, who were just as stunned. The room fell into an uneasy silence, as the weight of Carla's actions settled over them. But the consequences of her betrayal were immediate and dangerous. The Council, now armed with vital information about the ancient technology, would undoubtedly move faster. They were already prepared to use it against Earth. They had no time to waste. As the situation grew dire, cracks began to appear within Leo's team. The internal conflict between the soldiers, scientists, and officers reached a boiling point. Some believed that the only way to stop the Council was to use the technology. It was their only hope for survival. The power it promised was enormous, and some saw it as their only chance to stand toe-to-toe with the Council. But Leo, who had always believed in the fundamental goodness of humanity, was resolute. He knew the dangers of such power. The ancient technology had been hidden away for a reason. If it fell into the wrong hands, it would destroy more than just the Council. It would corrupt everything they'd fought for. Humanity had to find another way to defeat the Council. They couldn't afford to become like the very enemies they were fighting. "Leo, we can't just sit back and do nothing." One of his officers, Commander Rhea, argued fiercely. "We have a weapon that could change everything. Why should we let it rot away? This could be the end of the Council's reign." "Because it's too dangerous, Rhea." Leo snapped. "The moment we use it, we're no better than the Council. It's not our right to wield that kind of power. We have to destroy it before it consumes us all." Rhea's face twisted in anger, but she said nothing more. The divide within the team was growing, and with it, the stakes of the war felt even higher. As the hours passed, Leo's sense of responsibility grew heavier. Not only was he fighting a war for Earth's survival, but he was also now responsible for making sure humanity didn't fall into the same trap as the Council. In the midst of this internal conflict, an unexpected figure entered the fray: Varen, a warrior from the oppressed Cyrax species. The Cyrax had been subjugated by the Council for centuries, their people tortured, enslaved, and scattered across the galaxy. Varen, a fierce and skilled fighter, had managed to escape the Council's grip, finding refuge with humans on Earth. She had heard about the ancient technology and its potential, but she had a different perspective on its use. "We're not the only ones suffering under the Council's rule," Varen told Leo as they spoke in the quiet of the command room. "The Council has destroyed countless civilizations. They've turned entire species into slaves. The Cyrax, my people, are just one of many who have fallen to their tyranny. You may see the Council as the enemy, but I see them as a plague on the galaxy. If you use that technology, you have the chance to end their reign once and for all." Leo was taken aback. He had heard the stories of the Cyrax, but hearing it from Perrine made it real. He could see the pain in her eyes, the scars of a species broken by the Council's cruelty. She wasn't just fighting for survival. She was fighting for justice, for a galaxy free of oppression. "I understand your anger," Leo said quietly, his voice filled with empathy. "But using this technology, I'm not sure it's the right answer. It's a weapon of mass destruction. If we use it, we risk becoming the very thing we're fighting against." Varen's expression softened. "I know the risks, Leo. But sometimes, when you're faced with monsters, you have to become a monster to defeat them. The Cyrax didn't have the luxury of waiting for a better solution. We fought, and we lost. But now you have the chance to change that. The technology isn't just a weapon. It's hope." Leo was silent for a long moment, processing Varen's words. He knew she wasn't wrong. The Council's reign had been built on terror and subjugation, but he also knew that the line between justice and vengeance was razor thin. If they used the technology, they would have to live with the consequences. As the conversation continued, a chill ran down Leo's spine. He had hoped for a clear answer, a solution to the internal division tearing his team apart. But the truth was, there was no easy answer. In that moment, Leo realized that the war was not just about defeating the Galactic Council. It was about preserving humanity's soul, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. Meanwhile, Carla's betrayal had sent ripples of distrust through the team. Some, like Commander Rhea, were still willing to consider using the technology, seeing it as their last hope. Others, like Leo, were determined to destroy it. The disagreement between them had now turned personal, and as the war against the Council raged on, the conflict within Leo's team only intensified. The warships above Earth continued to hover ominously, their dark shadows casting a pall over the planet. And as Leo prepared for the battles ahead, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real enemy wasn't just the Council. It was the temptation of the power that lay before them, the power to destroy, to conquer, and to lose everything they stood for. The stakes had never been higher. And as the team braced for the inevitable clash with the Galactic Council, Leo knew one thing for certain. The path forward would require sacrifice, but it would also require the strength to stay true to what made humanity worth fighting for. The war had officially begun. With Carla's betrayal now public, the situation had gone from bad to worse. The Galactic Council, armed with the ancient technology, was advancing toward Earth, and every passing moment brought more chaos. The team was divided, emotions were running high, and trust was a scarce commodity. Yet, amidst the confusion and rising danger, Captain Leo Thorne knew one thing: they had to act fast, or they would lose everything. Leo had no time to waste. The decision was made. The humans would fight back. They couldn't afford to lose this battle, not when so much was at stake. The forbidden technology was now their only hope. Leo and his team began working in overdrive, using the alien tech to modify their weapons and ships. Cloaking devices, energy shields, and weapons capable of taking down the most formidable warships were now within their reach. The team wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the future of humanity. "Time to make a stand," Leo said, his voice cold with determination. He glanced at the team, now gathered in the war room. They were ready. but the fear in their eyes was undeniable. This mission would be the hardest and most dangerous they had ever faced. The Council's fleet, led by their ruthless AI-controlled warships, was closing in on Earth at an alarming speed. They were prepared for this war, while humanity was barely catching up. As the warships descended upon Earth, Leo's team launched their daring plan. They moved in the shadows, using cloaking devices to conceal their movements. The aim was simple: sabotage the Council's fleet from within. Leo's team was going to hit the Council's strongest ships, those controlled by the powerful AIs. It was a risky move, but there was no other choice. Every second counted. The battle began in earnest, and Leo found himself leading the charge. He piloted a sleek fighter ship, darting through the chaos of space. The roar of the engines was deafening as plasma blasts whizzed past him, narrowly missing his ship. His heart pounded in his chest, but he remained focused. He couldn't afford to get distracted, not when so many lives depended on him. The sound of explosions filled the air as Leo's team moved in on the Council warships. The AI-controlled ships were efficient and deadly, but they weren't invincible. Leo's fighter ship weaved through the debris of destroyed warships, avoiding plasma blasts that lit up the dark expanse of space. His hands gripped the controls tightly as he fired his weapons, taking down enemy ships one after another. The battle was chaotic, but there was a certain beauty in the way his team moved through it, fast, decisive, and relentless. On the ground, the fight was just as fierce. The Council's soldiers, equipped with high-tech exoskeletons, descended upon the Earth's surface. But humanity wasn't going down without a fight. The humans fought back with everything they had, using homemade weapons based on the ancient technology. These weapons were not as advanced as the Council's, but they were enough to give the soldiers a fighting chance. Close quarters combat erupted as Leo's team clashed with the heavily armed Council soldiers. Sparks flew as energy weapons clashed with shields, and the sound of metal on metal rang out in the air. The humans fought fiercely, determined to protect their home, but the Council's soldiers were relentless. Leo moved through the battlefield, his blade flashing as he cut down enemy soldiers one by one. His team followed his lead, each one fighting with the same intensity and purpose. Every victory, every alien soldier they brought down, was a small triumph in a war they had no choice but to fight. But the battle was far from over. The real fight was taking place in the skies above, where the Council's fleet was tearing through space. The warships were massive, each one brimming with weapons and shielded by advanced AI systems. Leo and his team were vastly outnumbered, and they knew they couldn't win this fight by conventional means. They needed to strike at the heart of the Council's fleet. With a series of well-placed maneuvers, Leo and his team managed to break through the enemy's defenses. Their cloaking devices had allowed them to get close, and now they were in the perfect position to deliver a devastating blow. Leo's fighter ship swooped in, firing its weapons at a critical weak point in the Council's flagship. The explosion that followed lit up the darkness of space, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. It was a victory, but it came at a high cost. As the team continued their fight, tragedy struck. Leo's closest friend, Lieutenant Bonner, who had been by his side through thick and thin, was gravely injured in a fierce exchange of fire. The team had been holding their ground when Bonner had charged ahead to protect them. A stray plasma blast caught him in the chest, and he fell to the ground, his blood staining the soil beneath him. "Bonner!" Leo shouted, rushing to his side. His heart sank as he knelt next to his friend, trying to assess the damage. But it was too late. Bonner's injuries were fatal. The light in his eyes was already fading, and there was nothing Leo could do to save him. Bonner's last words, spoken with the strength of someone who had seen countless battles, were simple but powerful. "Keep fighting, Leo. For Earth, for all of us." Leo felt his heart break as he looked at the man who had been like a brother to him. Bonner had given his life for this fight, and now it was up to Leo to make sure it wasn't in vain. His friend's sacrifice had ignited something deep inside him, a fire that could never be extinguished. He had to win this war, not just for humanity, but for every life that had been lost in the struggle. With renewed determination, Leo stood tall. The battle wasn't over, not by a long shot. His team was still fighting, and the Council's forces were not giving up easily. But Leo had made a promise to Bonner, and he wasn't going to let it go unfulfilled. He would fight until his last breath, and he would ensure that the future of humanity was secured, no matter what the cost. The sounds of explosions, the flashes of energy weapons, and the screams of combat filled the air as the battle raged on. But in the midst of the chaos, Leo and his team pushed forward, fueled by the memory of their fallen comrade and the hope that they could win this war. The warships continued to fall, one by one, and the tide of battle began to shift. Leo knew that the final push was coming, the decisive moment when everything would be decided. As the sun rose over the earth, Leo's resolve remained unshaken. He had lost friends, seen the worst of what the war had to offer, and faced the possibility of defeat. But as long as he had breath in his body, he would keep fighting. The final push had begun. The war had reached its peak. The fate of the entire galaxy rested on a single dangerous mission: destroy the artifact before the Galactic Council could harness its unimaginable power. Leo and his team had fought tooth and nail to get to this point, facing overwhelming odds, betrayal, and sacrifice. Now, standing at the precipice of the final battle, there was no turning back. The Council's flagship loomed in the distance, a massive warship that seemed to block out the stars. It was an imposing sight, with its sleek, menacing silhouette and an army of AI-controlled drones that swarmed like locusts. The flagship was home to the artifact, the source of the Council's power and the key to their galactic domination. If they could control it, nothing could stand in their way. But Leo and his team weren't going to let that happen. They had one chance to stop the Council and their AI forces from conquering the galaxy. They had to infiltrate the flagship, reach the vault where the artifact was stored, and destroy it before it was too late. This was their final stand, and failure was not an option. The plan was risky, but it was their only hope. Leo's team had managed to slip past the Council's outer defenses, using their advanced cloaking technology to remain undetected. Now, deep within the flagship, they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, their every step filled with tension. The sound of their boots echoed in the silence, a constant reminder of the enormity of the task ahead. The enemy was waiting for them. As they reached the vault, the doors hissed open, revealing the artifact in the center of the room, a glowing orb that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The room was heavily guarded, with AI drones patrolling the area and automated defense systems ready to strike at the slightest movement. Leo could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the final step in a battle that had cost so much already. Leo and his team fought their way through the defenses, their weapons flashing as they took down drone after drone. The battle was intense, each moment a blur of explosions and laser fire. The sound of gunshots and the whir of energy weapons filled the air, and the ground beneath them shook as the enemy forces retaliated. But Leo kept his focus, his mind sharp. He knew that the longer they stayed in the room, the greater the chance the Council would send reinforcements. They had to act fast. As they reached the artifact, Leo's heart raced. He could feel the heat radiating off it, the raw energy that seemed to hum with power. This was the weapon the Council had been seeking for centuries, the key to their control over the galaxy. But Leo knew that the only way to stop them was to destroy it, no matter the cost. He turned to his team. "We need to overload it," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "That's the only way to ensure it's gone for good." One of his team members, Lieutenant Rivera, spoke up. "But Leo, it'll kill you. You can't." Leo didn't let her finish. He had already made up his mind. The artifact was too dangerous to fall into the hands of the Council. If they allowed it to survive, the galaxy would be doomed. He had to destroy it, even if it meant sacrificing himself. "Someone has to do it," Leo said, his voice firm. "I'm the one who brought us here. I won't let everything we fought for be in vain." With no time to waste, Leo moved toward the control panel, where the artifact's core could be overloaded. He could feel the energy building around him, the tension in the air thickening. The countdown had begun. He knew what needed to be done, and there was no turning back now. As Leo activated the overload sequence, the room began to shake violently. Sparks flew from the control panel as alarms blared, signaling that the artifact's core was destabilizing. The team scrambled to escape, but Leo stayed behind. He had made his decision, and there was no way to undo it. The first explosion rocked the room, sending shockwaves through the flagship. The artifact began to crack, its once smooth surface splitting open as the energy inside it grew uncontrollable. The power it released was unlike anything Leo had ever felt before. Blinding light, deafening noise, and an overwhelming force that threatened to tear everything apart. But Leo remained focused, his heart pounding in his chest as he initiated the final sequence. "Leo," Rivera's voice echoed through the chaos, but he couldn't respond. The explosion had already begun, and there was no time left. The second explosion was even more powerful. The entire flagship shook as the artifact disintegrated in a burst of bright light, sending shockwaves through the ship. The walls buckled, the floor cracked open, and everything around them seemed to implode. Leo felt the heat of the explosion sear through him, but he didn't flinch. This was the price he had to pay. As the light engulfed him, Leo's thoughts flashed to his fallen comrades, to Bonner, to everything they had fought for. This was the end, but it was also the beginning of something new. The Council's reign of terror would be over, and humanity would have a chance to rebuild. He had given everything for this moment, and he wouldn't have it any other way. In the final moments before the explosion consumed him, Leo smiled. It was a small, fleeting smile, but it was enough. He had done it. The galaxy was saved. The flagship disintegrated in a massive explosion, sending debris scattered across space. The Council's fleet, in disarray after the destruction of their most powerful weapon, began to retreat. Their dominance over the galaxy had been shattered, and the power of AI forces had been broken. For Leo, the battle was over. His sacrifice had ensured that the galaxy would be free from the tyranny of the Galactic Council, but his legacy would live on. The human race had proven its strength, its resilience, and its ability to fight for what was right. And though Leo would never see the peace he had fought for, his memory would inspire generations to come. As the final remnants of the flagship drifted through space, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The war was over, and humanity had won. The battle was over. The final explosion had echoed across the galaxy, marking the end of the Galactic Council's reign of terror. For years, they had ruled with an iron fist, using their advanced technology and artificial intelligence to keep countless civilizations under their control. But now, they were retreating in defeat. The once feared council was no longer the unstoppable force it had once been. The victory was not just a military one. It was a victory of humanity's spirit, its resilience, and its newfound strength. With the destruction of the artifact, the Council's power was shattered, and the AI forces that had once served them began to falter. The Council's warships, once a terrifying sight, were now scattered and retreating, their systems malfunctioning as the AI technology they had relied on began to fail. The galaxy was in chaos, but it was a chaos that brought hope, a chance for a fresh start. Humanity, against all odds, had proven itself capable of facing the most advanced and powerful forces in the galaxy. Earth, once a small, overlooked planet, was now recognized as a force to be reckoned with. No longer seen as the underdog, humanity had established itself as a new power in the galaxy. Earth was no longer a place for alien invaders to exploit. It was a home to a species that could fight back, a species that could protect its own. As the news of the Council's defeat spread, the galaxy took notice. Other civilizations, long oppressed by the Council's rule, began to rise up. Earth, once considered a fragile and primitive world, became a symbol of resistance, strength, and hope. Varen, the warrior from the Cyrax species who had stood alongside Leo and his team, became the face of the movement for peace. With the Council's collapse, she worked tirelessly to bring together the fractured galaxy, urging all species to work together and build a future where freedom, justice, and cooperation prevailed. Varen's leadership, combined with the bravery and determination shown by humanity, sparked a new era. The once divided galaxy began to unite as species long at odds with each other recognized that they shared a common enemy in the Council and its corrupt rule. Earth became a key player in the formation of a new galactic alliance where each species had a voice and no one was above the law. But in the midst of this hopeful future, the loss of Leo weighed heavily on everyone. He had sacrificed everything to ensure the galaxy's survival, and his memory would never fade. As the war ended and peace began to take shape, Leo's name became a symbol of courage, selflessness, and unwavering resolve. His memorial was built on Earth, a place where humans and their alien allies could come together to honor his sacrifice. The memorial wasn't just a tribute to a fallen hero. It was a reminder of what they had fought for, a future where no one would have to suffer under the rule of the Council or any other oppressive force. The scene at Leo's memorial was a powerful one. People of all species, human and alien alike, stood together in silence, paying their respects. Some had fought beside Leo, others had been inspired by his courage from afar, but all shared in the knowledge that his sacrifice had made a new future possible. The sight of humans and aliens standing side by side, united in grief and in hope, was a testament to the strength of what they had achieved together. The divisions that once seemed insurmountable had been bridged, and the galaxy now looked toward a future where cooperation and unity were possible. The final scenes of the story took place on Earth, now a thriving hub of intergalactic diplomacy and progress. The skyline of the planet had changed dramatically. What was once a world marked by conflict and division had transformed into a beautiful, futuristic cityscape with towering skyscrapers that gleamed under the light of a new dawn. The city was alive with activity as people of all species worked side by side, rebuilding, learning from each other, and striving to create a better future. It was a city that stood as a symbol of hope, of what could be achieved when individuals and nations came together to overcome the darkest of forces. As the camera zoomed out, the skyline of Earth was bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. The day was ending, but it wasn't the end of hope. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. The people, human and alien alike, looked up at the sky, knowing that they had secured a future where peace and progress could flourish. The final shot of the film was breathtaking. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the stars began to twinkle above, signaling the start of a new era. Earth's place in the galaxy had been solidified, and humanity, once considered weak and insignificant, had proven that it had the strength and determination to shape its own destiny. For Leo, the fight had been his life. But for the galaxy, his sacrifice had been the catalyst for change. He was gone, but his spirit lived on in every action, taken to build the new world that had been forged from the ashes of war. The galaxy would never forget the man who had given everything to ensure that freedom, justice, and hope would prevail. The story ended with a powerful emotional moment. A voiceover echoed through the scene, speaking of the legacy of Leo and the future that had been made possible because of his bravery. It was a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come at the highest cost, but those victories are worth every sacrifice. As the screen faded to black, the words, "The future is ours," appeared in bold, hopeful letters. The battle for freedom was over. The new dawn had begun.